Hey everyone, welcome back. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss these amazing stories. Today's tale is about how a billionaire's experiment in living like an ordinary person led to the most genuine love story you'll ever hear. It was 6:15 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in Portland, Oregon, and the number 20 bus was packed with the usual crowd of early commuters. Construction workers heading to job sites, hospital staff beginning their shifts, students on their way to community college, and office workers who couldn't afford to live closer to downtown. Among them sat a man who looked like he belonged perfectly in this crowd, but whose presence there was actually the result of a very deliberate and unusual decision. His name was Alexander Hayes, though the few people who bothered to notice him on the bus knew him only as Alex, the quiet guy who always sat in the back and minded his own business. What they didn't know was that Alexander Hayes was worth approximately $2.8 billion, making him one of the wealthiest men in the Pacific Northwest. He was the founder and CEO of Hayes Technologies, a company that had revolutionized cloud computing and data storage, making him incredibly wealthy by the time he was 35. But for the past 8 months, Alexander had been conducting what he called a social experiment. Disgusted by the superficiality and greed of his wealthy social circle, and increasingly isolated by his fortune, he had decided to spend a year living as an ordinary working-class person. He had rented a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood, bought second-hand clothes from thrift stores, and taken a job as a night security guard at a downtown office building. Every morning, he rode the bus to work, and every evening, he rode it home. Alexander's goal was simple. He wanted to understand how regular people lived, what they worried about, what made them happy, and whether genuine human connections were possible when money wasn't part of the equation. He had grown tired of relationships that were based on his wealth, tired of never knowing if people liked him for who he was or what he could provide for them. The experiment had been eye-opening but also lonely. Alexander had discovered that working-class life was much harder than he had imagined, even with the safety net of knowing he could return to his wealth whenever he chose. He had gained respect for people who did this every day out of necessity, not choice. But he had also found it difficult to form meaningful connections with people when he was constantly hiding such a fundamental part of who he was. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Alexander boarded the bus at his usual stop, wearing his standard uniform of worn jeans, a faded flannel shirt, and work boots that he had carefully scuffed to look authentic. He made his way to his preferred seat in the back, put in his earbuds, and settled in for the 40-minute ride to downtown. At the third stop, a young woman got on the bus, and Alexander found himself paying attention in a way he hadn't in months. She was probably in her mid-20s, with long dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and wearing scrubs that identified her as a healthcare worker. She had a kind face, the sort of face that suggested she smiled often, though this morning she looked tired. The bus was crowded, and most of the seats were taken. The young woman looked around for a moment, then noticed the empty seat next to Alexander. She approached hesitantly. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" she asked politely. Alexander removed his earbuds and shook his head. "No, please, go ahead." "Thank you," she said, settling into the seat with a small sigh of relief. "Long day ahead?" Alexander was surprised by the question. Most bus passengers kept to themselves, lost in their phones or their own thoughts. "Yeah, something like that." "You?" 12-hour shift at the hospital. "But I love what I do, so it doesn't feel like work most of the time." She smiled, and Alexander noticed that her smile was genuine, reaching her eyes in a way that was rare in his usual social circles. "What do you do at the hospital?" Alexander asked, finding himself genuinely curious. "I'm a pediatric nurse. I work with kids who are going through cancer treatment." Her expression became more serious. "It's heartbreaking sometimes, but those kids are so brave, so full of hope." They remind me every day what's really important in life. Alexander was struck by the sincerity in her voice. In his wealthy circles, people often talked about their work in terms of status, money, or power. This woman was talking about meaning, about purpose, about making a difference in the world. That sounds incredibly rewarding, he said. And difficult. It is both, she agreed. I'm Sophia, by the way. Sophia Martinez. Alex, he replied. Nice to meet you. As the bus continued its route, Alexander found himself drawn into conversation with Sophia in a way that felt completely natural. She asked about his work, and he told her about his security guard job, surprised by how easy it was to talk to her. She didn't judge him for his blue-collar work, didn't seem to think less of him because he wasn't a professional or executive. Security work must be interesting, Sophia said. You probably see all kinds of things. It's mostly pretty quiet. Alexander replied. But I like the solitude. Gives me time to think. I understand that. Sometimes the best part of my day is the bus ride, just having a few minutes to decompress before I get to work. As they talked, Alexander noticed that Sophia kept glancing at a small paper bag she was carrying. Finally, she opened it and pulled out what appeared to be a homemade breakfast burrito wrapped in foil. I always make extra breakfast, she said, almost shyly. Would you like half? I noticed you don't have anything to eat, and it's going to be a long day. Alexander was stunned. When was the last time someone had offered to share their food with him? In his wealthy life, meals were elaborate affairs at expensive restaurants, business dinners with ulterior motives, or catered events where food was abundant but somehow meaningless. This simple offer of half a breakfast burrito felt more genuine than any of those experiences. Are you sure? He asked. I don't want to take your breakfast. I'm sure, Sophia said, already unwrapping the burrito and tearing it in half. My abuela always said that food tastes better when it's shared. She handed him half of the burrito, and Alexander took a bite. It was simple: eggs, cheese, a little salsa, wrapped in a flour tortilla, but it was delicious in a way that had nothing to do with expensive ingredients or fancy preparation. It was made with care, shared with kindness, and eaten in the company of someone who expected nothing in return. This is really good, Alexander said. Thank you. You're welcome. My abuela taught me to make them. She said the secret ingredient is making them for people you care about. Alexander looked at Sophia with new interest. You care about a stranger on the bus? Sophia smiled. I care about people in general. We're all just trying to get through our days, right? A little kindness makes everything easier. For the rest of the bus ride, Alexander found himself completely captivated by Sophia's worldview. She talked about her patience with genuine love and concern, about her family with warmth and loyalty, about her dreams and goals with a combination of ambition and humility that he had never encountered in his wealthy circles. When the bus reached downtown, Sophia gathered her things and stood up. It was really nice talking with you, Alex. I hope you have a good day at work. You too, Alexander replied. Thank you for breakfast. As Sophia walked away, Alexander realized that he was hoping to see her again. For the first time in months, he was looking forward to his bus ride the next morning. The next day, Alexander found himself scanning the bus for Sophia as passengers boarded. When she got on at her usual stop, he felt a genuine surge of happiness. She spotted him and smiled, making her way to the seat next to him. Good morning, Alex, she said. How was your shift yesterday? It was good. Quiet. How was your day at the hospital? Sophia's expression became more serious. We had a little girl come in yesterday. 7 years old, just diagnosed with leukemia. Her parents were so scared, so overwhelmed. I spent most of my break just sitting with them, trying to help them understand. What comes next? Alexander was moved by the compassion in her voice. That must be hard for you too. It is. But that's why I do this job. Those families need someone who cares, someone who will fight for their kids and help them navigate the scariest time of their lives. Once again, Sophia had brought extra breakfast, and once again, she offered to share it with Alexander. This time it was homemade muffins that her neighbor had made. Mrs. Chen upstairs bakes when she's worried about her son overseas, Sophia explained. She made way too many, so she gave me a bunch to share. As they shared the muffins, Alexander found himself telling Sophia things about himself that he had never shared with anyone, not the facts about his wealth and success, but his feelings about loneliness, his search for meaning, his desire to make a real difference in the world. Sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions, he said. Like I'm not really living, just existing. Sophia nodded understandingly. I felt that way before I became a nurse. I was working in an office, making decent money, but I went home every day feeling empty. It wasn't until I found work that mattered to me that I felt like I was really alive. How did you know nursing was right for you? My little brother got sick when I was in college. Spent months in the hospital. I saw how much difference the nurses made, not just medically, but emotionally. They were the ones who held his hand when he was scared, who made him laugh when he was in pain, who gave our whole family hope when things looked dark. Sophia's voice was soft with memory. I knew I wanted to be that person for other families. Alexander was quiet for a moment. Is your brother okay now? Sophia smiled. He's great. He's in his second year of college, studying to be a teacher. He says his experience in the hospital taught him that he wants to help kids too, just in a different way. Day after day, Alexander found himself looking forward to his bus rides with Sophia more than anything else in his life. Their conversations ranged from deep philosophical discussions about the meaning of life to silly debates about the best coffee shops in Portland. Sophia had a way of making even ordinary topics feel interesting and meaningful. Alexander began to realize that he was falling in love with Sophia, but it was unlike any romantic feeling he had ever experienced. In his wealthy life, relationships had often felt transactional. People were attracted to his money, his status, his ability to provide luxury experiences. With Sophia, he felt valued for his thoughts, his sense of humor, his kindness. She had no idea about his wealth, and yet she seemed to genuinely enjoy his company. But this realization also created a growing sense of anxiety for Alexander. How could he continue this relationship while living a lie? How could he tell Sophia the truth without destroying the genuine connection they had built? Would she feel betrayed when she learned about his deception? Would she assume that his feelings weren't real? 3 weeks into their daily bus conversations, Sophia mentioned that her hospital was struggling financially and might have to cut staff in the pediatric oncology unit. It's heartbreaking, she said, her voice heavy with worry. These kids need consistency, need to build relationships with their care team. If we lose nurses, the quality of care is going to suffer. Alexander felt a surge of frustration. Here was a problem that he could solve easily with his wealth, but he couldn't do anything without revealing his true identity. He had billions of dollars sitting in accounts while Sophia worried about her ability to care for sick children. Is there anything that can be done? He asked. The hospital is looking for donors, but it's hard. People want to donate to research or new equipment. Things that sound impressive. It's harder to get people excited about funding nursing positions and basic care. That evening, Alexander lay awake thinking about Sophia's words. He realized that his experiment in living as an ordinary person had taught him something important. The problems that mattered most to people like Sophia were often the ones that wealthy donors overlooked. She wasn't asking for anything for herself, she was worried about her patients, about her ability to do her job well. The next morning, Alexander made a decision. He had to tell Sophia the truth, regardless of the consequences. "Sophia," he said as they settled into their seats on the bus, "I need to tell you something important." She looked at him with concern. "Is everything okay? I haven't been entirely honest with you about who I am." Sophia's expression became guarded. "What do you mean?" Alexander took a deep breath. "My name really is Alexander, but I'm not actually a security guard. I'm the CEO of Hayes Technologies. I've been living as a working-class person for the past 8 months as a kind of experiment, trying to understand how regular people live." Sophia stared at him in shock. "You're telling me you're rich? Very rich? Billionaire rich?" Sophia's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, confusion, hurt, and finally anger. "So this has all been a lie? You've been pretending to be someone you're not?" "Sophia, please let me explain. Yes, I've been pretending about my job and my financial situation, but everything else has been real. My feelings for you are real. The conversations we've had, the connection we've built. None of that was fake. How can I believe that? You've been lying to me for weeks." "Because I was afraid of exactly this reaction. I was afraid that if you knew about my money, everything would change. You'd see me differently, treat me differently." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window. "So what, you've been slumming it with the poor people for entertainment?" "No. Sophia, that's not what this was about at all. I was lonely, surrounded by people who only cared about my money. I wanted to know if genuine connections were possible, if someone could care about me for who I am rather than what I have. And now you know? Yes. You've shown me kindness, generosity, and genuine care without knowing anything about my wealth. You've shared your food with me, your thoughts, your dreams. You've made me feel more valued and understood than I've felt in years." Sophia was still processing this information. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because I can't stand lying to you anymore. And because I want to help with the situation at your hospital." "Help how?" "I want to make a donation. A big enough donation to ensure that the pediatric oncology unit is fully funded, that no nursing positions are cut, that you have everything you need to take care of those kids." Sophia looked at him suspiciously. "How big a donation?" "Whatever it takes. 5 million, 10 million, whatever the hospital needs." Sophia was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "I need time to think about this. About all of this." "I understand. Sophia, I know I've hurt you by not being honest, but I need you to know that my feelings for you are completely genuine. I've fallen in love with you, not because of anything you can do for me, but because of who you are." Sophia looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I don't know what to think right now. I need some space." The bus reached Sophia's stop, and she got off without saying goodbye. Alexander watched her walk away, feeling like his heart was breaking. For the next week, Sophia didn't take the bus. Alexander rode alone, hoping each morning that he would see her, but she never appeared. He realized that he had probably lost the most meaningful relationship of his life because of his deception. Finally, Alexander decided he had to do something. He couldn't force Sophia to forgive him, but he could follow through on his promise. To help her hospital. He contacted the hospital's development office and arranged to make an anonymous donation of $12 million, specifically earmarked for the pediatric oncology unit. The donation made local news, and Alexander watched from his apartment as Sophia was interviewed on television about what the funding would mean for her patients. She looked happy but also puzzled, clearly wondering about the identity of the anonymous donor. 2 days later, Sophia was waiting at the bus stop when Alexander arrived. She got on the bus and sat next to him, but she didn't speak for several minutes. Finally, she broke the silence. The hospital got an anonymous donation. $12 million for our unit. That's wonderful, Alexander said carefully. It was you, wasn't it? Alexander nodded. I wanted to help, regardless of what happened between us. Sophia was quiet again. Then she said, I've been thinking about what you said. About wanting to know if someone could care about you for who you are. And? I was hurt that you lied to me. I felt like you didn't trust me enough to be honest. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. But I also understand why you did it. I've seen how people change when they find out someone has money. They start treating you differently, wanting things from you. Alexander looked at her hopefully. Does that mean you can forgive me? Sophia smiled for the first time in over a week. I think it means I understand you better than I did before. And Alex, or Alexander, I need you to know that my feelings for you don't have anything to do with your money. I fell for the guy who listened to me talk about my patients, who shared breakfast burritos with me, who made me laugh on early morning bus rides. Alexander felt a wave of relief and joy. So, we can try again? Start over, but with honesty this time? I'd like that. But I have some conditions. Anything. First, no more lies. If we're going to be together, I need to know who you really are. Agreed. Second, I don't want your money to change how we relate to each other. I don't want expensive gifts or fancy restaurants. I want what we had on this bus, real conversations, shared experiences, genuine connection. That's all I want too. And third, I want to be involved in your charitable giving. If you're going to use your wealth to help people, I want to help you make sure it goes to the right places, to the people who really need it. Alexander smiled. I can't think of anyone I'd rather have as a partner in that. 6 months later, Alexander and Sophia were still taking the bus together every morning, though now it was by choice rather than necessity. Alexander had ended his experiment in living as a working-class person, but he had kept the modest apartment and the simple lifestyle. He had discovered that he was happier living simply with Sophia than he had ever been in his mansion surrounded by luxury. Together, they had established the Sofia Martinez Foundation, which focused on supporting healthcare workers and improving patient care in underserved communities. Sophia had taken a part-time position with the foundation while continuing her nursing work, using her frontline experience to guide their charitable giving. The foundation had funded nursing scholarships, supported free clinics, and provided grants to hospitals serving low-income communities. But their favorite project was a program that provided comfort items and support services to families of pediatric cancer patients, something Sophia had suggested based on her daily experience with these families. Alexander had also made changes to his business practices, implementing programs to support his employees' well-being and ensuring that Hayes Technologies was a company that prioritized people over profits. A year after their first bus ride together, Alexander proposed to Sophia on the number 20 bus, in the same seats where they had first met. He didn't have an expensive ring or elaborate plans, just a simple proposal from the heart, witnessed by their fellow commuters who had watched their relationship develop over months of shared morning rides. Sophia said yes, and the entire bus erupted in applause. Their wedding was a reflection of their values, a simple ceremony in Sophia's family church, followed by a reception in the hospital cafeteria where Sophia worked. Instead of expensive flowers and elaborate decorations, they asked guests to make donations to the pediatric oncology unit. Instead of a luxury honeymoon, they spent a week volunteering at a free clinic in rural Oregon. The story of how they met, a billionaire disguised as a working man who fell in love with a nurse who shared her breakfast with strangers, became legendary among their friends and family. But for Alexander and Sophia, it was simply the beginning of a life built on genuine love, shared values, and a commitment to using their resources to make the world a better place. Alexander never regretted his decision to live as an ordinary person for those 8 months. It had taught him what really mattered in life, and it had led him to the love of his life. Sophia had shown him that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the depth of your relationships and the positive impact you have on others. Sophia, for her part, had learned that love could come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in plain sight, sharing bus rides and breakfast burritos with anyone kind enough to offer. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that genuine connections can happen anywhere, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories of unexpected love and human kindness. Have you ever had a chance encounter that changed your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, you never know who might be sitting next to you on your daily commute. Sometimes the most ordinary moments lead to the most extraordinary love stories. I'll see you in the next video.